Hey everyone, welcome to the DarkCast. I'm your host, Jonathan Miley. It's the end of 2018 and I'm happy to be bringing you part 2 of 4 of our Games of the Year discussion. In this episode, I talked to 4 writers about 4 of the best games this year. In Section 1, I talked to Brandyn Boyd about Celeste. In Section 2, I speak with Sam Brooke about Red Faction Guerrilla Re-MARS-tered edition. In Section 3, I talk with Brandyn Brodsky about Dragon Quest XI. And in Section 4, I talk to Alex Mateo about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. You can find timestamps for each section, as well as more information about the games we discuss in the show notes for this episode, which you can find on darkstation.com. There you can also find the DarkCast Interviews podcast, as well as video game reviews, previews, and features, including our writers' top 5 list for this year, which will be going up throughout the rest of December. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at darkstation_com, find us on Facebook, and email us at podcast@darkstation.com. As always, thank you so much for listening. Now on with the show. Welcome back to the DarkCast. I'm Jonathan Miley. Joining me is Brandyn Boyd. How are you doing, Brandyn?
I'm doing just fine. How about you?
I'm doing great. I've actually been, not related to anything Game of the Year, but while I've been editing the Game of the Year podcast, I've been playing some Mercenaries Playground of Destruction, which ages a lot better than I thought it would. It's actually pretty surprising.
Yeah, there hasn't really been a whole lot like it in the interim period. Didn't it just come to backwards compatibility on the Xbox?
Yeah, I think it's been on the backwards compatibility for this year, but it just came on with Games with Gold, which I've got the physical disc, but you know what? Why not play it digitally where I don't have to put a disc in the console? That's digital stuff has spoiled me. I've always been a physical game guy. But more and more, I'm like, I don't want to, have to get up, grab a disc, walk 5 feet, put it in the console. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, everyone was kind of rightfully upset about the way the Xbox One was pitched initially, I think, but we've just kind of, naturally put ourselves in that position anyway, so.
Yeah, we have. But that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about some of our favorite games released in 2018. What are we talking about today, Brandyn?
Well, I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about Celeste.
So I know people love Celeste. I've seen trailers for it and whatnot, but give me just the elevator pitch. What is the game for anybody that doesn't know?
Yeah, sure. So it is a 2D platformer. It's one of the really hard-as-nail ones, think sort of in the vein of Super Meat Boy. So it's got some retro throwbacks. It's got really nice pixel art, some nice bit-inspired music. And it's also kind of couched in this story about anxiety and mental health.
So Super Meat Boy is a pretty high bar for me when it comes to tough-as-nails platformers. I'm very selective in what type of game that is quote-unquote tough as nails that I'll actually play. Super Meat Boy is one of the few. What is the difficulty of Celeste like?
For sure. Well, there's a lot of different ways we could approach this topic. On a superficial level, it is very similar to something like Super Meat Boy, but because it has this narrative that's more of a driving force, it's not really the same thing as each level just being something you have to complete in one go, like Super Meat Boy. The campaign is a series of levels that are in of themselves a series of screens. So if you die on a screen, you immediately pop right back into existence on that screen, and each screen is sort of like a challenge room.
Okay. But it's not individual levels per se. It's one. It's almost like Mega Man, where you have a screen that you're on and then you move to the next one. Would that be a fair comparison?
Yeah, very fair. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what makes Celeste one of your games of the year?
Well, on a purely mechanical level, if we're just talking about the mechanics of actively playing the game, I think it is by far the most satisfying game I played this year. It's the way its controls are tuned are just perfect. The level of challenge is intense, but always fair. And then you have this story about anxiety that's told really well, that really couples itself with just how difficult the game is and can be to overcome in certain ways. But at the same time, it has all these like handicaps and stuff in the options, which I wouldn't recommend using. But if you got to the point where you did just want to see how the game ends, you can actually go into the settings and you can adjust certain options. Like you can make it so spikes don't instantly kill you and things like that. And the game does allow you to make it easier if you just don't have the dexterity for these kind of games.
I'd completely forgotten about that. I remember hearing people talk about the various options, but I'd not remembered that for whatever reason. And honestly, Celeste had kind of scared me off because, the main thing that people kind of talked about it was it being a very satisfying platform that is very tough. And I was like, you know what? I'm just not feeling that. But hearing you talk about it right now, I'm like, I kind of want to go play Celeste.
Oh, you definitely should. And it is just dripping with content. So the main campaign is pretty lengthy in of itself. It's probably between 8 and 10 hours long. But each level also has tons of hidden things. Like there's these strawberries that you collect, and they tend to be tucked away behind much more difficult platform challenges. And since it is like Meat Boy in the sense that you just pop right back into existence after each death, trying to figure out how to get those is really satisfying. And then there's a lot of post-game content that you can unlock with some like really brutally difficult levels. So after the narrative is over, if you just enjoyed the gameplay that much, and I imagine most people would, it's very tight, there's an avenue for you to continue playing it there.
Obviously, we don't want to go into too many spoilers with the story. It deals with anxiety, but like, how does a girl climbing a mountain relate to anxiety? I guess.
Well, it's the idea of something inside of you preventing you from overcoming obstacles, I think. So the idea is that this mountain is this obstacle that this girl has set up, and it's representative of just kind of her over demons, and it's about climbing those and learning to cooperate with yourself, your more base self, the parts of you that have had failures, the parts of you that don't represent that best self.
Any other thoughts about the game before we kind of move on to your other pick for favorite game released before 2018?
Honestly, not a whole lot that everyone else isn't already saying. Aesthetically, it is amazing. It's got great pixel art. The soundtrack is easily one of the best of the year. The soundtrack's on Spotify, too, and it's worth listening to on its own.
Okay.
Yeah, great game. Coupled with how great the gameplay is and how affecting the narrative is, I think it's very easily one of the best games this year.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, like I mentioned, one of the things that we do with our top 5 lists is kind of shine spotlight on our favorite game that we played this year but was released before 2018. So what did you give that award to?
So I went ahead and gave it to Hollow Knight, which I, like many other people, played for the first time this year because we're just now seeing console releases. But technically, it did come out on PC last year, and I just wouldn't have felt right if I didn't mention this game in some way or another because I played it for like 60 hours, and it is just fantastic.
That is awesome. That is also kind of hilarious. I don't think we have ever had a duplicate favorite game released or played in 2018, released before 2018, but we've done it now. We're breaking records. We're making news. 2 people have voted for Hollow Knight on this. That is awesome.
It is absolutely deserving. I wrote in my article that'll go up here in the next couple of weeks or so that I think it's the best Metroidvania style game since Super Metroid. Essentially, it's just breathtakingly good.
Now, have you actually beaten the game, or?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
did finish the game. I did intend to go back and get like the true ending. There's a lot of different variables that affect things, but I got kind of pulled away by other games this year. I think eventually I'll go back and just start the whole thing over because it is that good and it's getting all kinds of free downloadable content too.
Yeah, I played the game on PC, and I really adore it, but I was never able to beat the game. I got to what felt like a brick wall with the it's the boss where you get the slam ability because to break through glass and stuff. I
Yeah.
don't remember what it's called, but I just tried and tried and tried and was not able to defeat that boss.
Yeah, and he fakes you out when you think you have beat him. It's kind of mean, actually.
But it's a game. I love the soundtrack. I love the art style of it. I love that it just kind of drips information to you in a lot of ways. It's very, Souls or Bloodborne-esque, and that it's not just dumping narrative on you. You're getting narrative through the items of the world and things like that. And it's a game where I played it for a fair amount and was really enjoying it, but just got to a point where I wasn't having a good time playing the game. But I still really appreciate like what it is and love it from afar now.
I think it's going to be that way for a lot of people because it is very long, especially for this genre, and it is quite difficult, and it's going to be difficult in different ways for everybody. Like, personally, I didn't have a whole lot of trouble with most of the combat, say for one or two boss fights, but sometimes figuring out where to go and what you need to do to progress is quite challenging for me, so...
Excellent. That is a game that is well worthy of people's adoration and should definitely be played. But just know that you might not play it for very long. It may scare you away like it did me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, awesome. Any final thoughts about Hollow Knight or Celeste before we go on to the next section?
No, I just think they are representative of a certain sect of games that came out this year, and that would be this very burgeoned indie scene. Indie games are just getting bigger and better, and in a lot of ways it's becoming harder and harder to differentiate between what is a published AAA game or whatever you want to call it and what these indie games are on a mechanical level, and it's really exciting stuff.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me about Celeste and Hollow Knight, and look forward to talking to you more in 2019.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the DarkCast. I'm Jonathan Miley. Joining me today is Sam Brooke. How are you doing, Sam?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. John, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm really interested to talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is, well, what are we talking about? I'll let you answer.
Well, it's Red Faction Guerrilla Re-MARS-tered, so it's the remastered version of the 2009, I think, THQ game. So yeah, it's a weird pick. It definitely won't be in most people's lists, but I think it's something that deserves to be kind of talked about and be a bit more popular right now.
Okay. Well, so first of all, I just want to make sure that it's clear. The reason that this is on your list is because of the fantastic subtitle Re-MARS-tered.
That is definitely part of it. Definitely part of
it. Good. When the new THQ first released their wonky, like, remastered definitive edition title with Darksiders 2 Definitive Edition. I was like, oh god, that's terrible. Yeah. And then they came out with Darksiders, and it was War Mastered, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then Red Faction Guerrilla came out, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is a fantastic trend, and I'm so on board with it.
Definitely, yeah. I'm hoping we need more punny video game names. To be honest, we don't hear it enough.
No, we don't. I feel like comedy in general is something that's missing from video games.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
We need to get more of that. But anyway, for anybody that doesn't know, what Red Faction Guerrilla is, kind of give us the elevator pitch of this game first.
Well, I mean, it's very hard to describe because it's kind of the best I can kind of describe it as a sort of space communist them up, which is so I don't know. It's basically you're this guy called Alex Mateo. You're on Mars, and essentially you've been brought there to kind of start this kind of revolutionary movement and basically smash things with your sledgehammer. That's definitely the main draw of the game. It's definitely what people remember most about it was just the insane kind of destruction engine that they put in. It was, there's pretty much every mission, both side and main missions, are all about, smashing stuff up, destroying buildings, whether that's with, black hole guns or your trusty sledgehammer, all that kind of stuff. So it's not quite sort of a B game, but it was definitely one that wasn't taking itself too seriously.
So what puts this on your top 5 list for 2018?
Just because it kind of, I think, kind of brought back a lot of good memories, definitely, because although definitely I'd say 2018 has been a great year for games. We've had so much stuff. Not that I've managed to play too much of it, but it's just something about the kind of throwback to game to again, I saw that I kind of refer to them as B-list games that they're not AAA, they're not indie, they're just kind of the ones that publishers like THQ used to just say, have a bit of money, just give it a bit of a try and see what happens. And essentially this is kind of a nice reminder because I feel like those games don't really exist anymore.
Sure. Yeah, no, actually I'm a big fan of Don't Nod Studios. They're the guys that make Life is Strange, and I think Vampire is definitely a game that kind of exists in that AA or B, whatever you want to call like the mid-grade tier of video games. Remember Me, one of their first games was definitely along those lines. And there's actually a French they're like the French BioWare. It's called studio called Spiders.
Okay.
And they made a game a couple of years ago called Technomancer, which is
I remember hearing about that.
That is definitely like in that realm where like it's kind of a hard game to recommend to most people, but at the same time, I'm just really happy it exists and that their studios still kind of in that range that don't necessarily have the money or the polish of the big AAA. But at the same time, they're not under the same like time restraints as those games, and they're trying to do like weird and wonky stuff that most often probably doesn't land the way that it should. But they're still trying.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean it's it's kind of again. I mean, you can kind of tell this with Red Faction Guerrilla, but it's kind of. They're games that have heart. As much as they have quite a big budget, they've got heart. There's always some kind of... They're not perfect. They're definitely not polished. There's so many glitches in even the remastered version of Red Faction. But, they're just games where people, had an idea and they stuck to it. And, it's nice that they tried to do something new and they tried to do something creative.
Mm-hmm. Did you play any of the other Red Faction games?
I did. I haven't played any of the ones that came before, but I remember getting I think I just played Guerrilla and I saw that Red Faction Armageddon was out. Which, if you've played it, I'm not sure if you have.
Yeah, I've played. I've played all of them. I never actually finished the first one.
Yeah, but Red Faction Armageddon came out, and that I'm gonna be honest, that wasn't very good. It kind of had all the. It took everything that was great about Red Faction Guerrilla, which is kind of the the laughing, joking tone, the freedom of the open world that you're in. It kind of just took all of that out. It was a much more darker game. It was a linear game, which is definitely, it wasn't what made Red Faction Guerrilla great. And so that's why it's weird, because I don't particularly like, Red Faction as a series. I don't think it's really that like significant. I've never been that too much of a fan of it, but it's just this game in particular is just because of its, I guess, willingness to be creative and willingness to be different and to just at least just focus on what it does best, and that's destroying buildings, all that kind of stuff. That's that's one of the reasons why it sticks out so well compared to other parts of the series. And I mean, yeah,
sure. Yeah, there's something to the systemic kind of gameplay of Guerrilla that none of the other games have, because the first two are linear first-person shooters, and the third one is a linear third-person shooter.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really liked from the third one was your kind of like abilities that you get with your like nanites, or I don't remember what the conceit of the game was, but somehow you had superpowers. And that was pretty cool. And you could also repair, like, the stuff that you destroyed, basically because you could easily destroy, like, parts of the game that you had to either use or, like, a bridge or something to get from one place to another. So you had to be able to repair stuff. But just being able to then break stuff again was kind of neat. The rest of the game is not as good as Guerrilla. But I remember... Like, there was one time, this was several years ago now, but I was playing Red Faction Guerrilla, and I was trying to clear out this base. I feel like it was, like, towards the end of the game, you have your, like, booster jetpack thing, and I had planted mines on this road to take out a caravan, and, like, I'm trying to get off the bridge, and, like, I'm running across the bridge because the caravan's gotten there, like, sooner than I thought it would. And it gets onto the bridge, so I need to go ahead and blow up all of the, like, C4 that I planted. And so I'm booking it across and jump off, and everything starts to explode. I was able to take out the caravan and literally just barely made it to the side, like, the ledge, where the bridge is now gone, and made feet back onto like solid ground. And it totally, like, it would have been a cutscene in any other game, but in Red Faction Guerrilla, it was just kind of this random little thing that just happened because that's the way the game works. And I don't know if anybody else got to experience a thing exactly like that, and I never experienced that again. But like, it was just a really cool. Like, when people talk about emergent gameplay and, like, the stories that you can tell from it, I always think about that. And it's like, okay, if somebody can actually figure out how to do, like, these unscripted moments that feel scripted, like I experienced in that 30 seconds of Red Faction Guerrilla, then I will totally be behind emergent gameplay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, because in my opinion, as much as the missions in Red Faction are fun, especially like the main kind of story stuff, it's pretty simplistic. It's not exactly the best part of the game. I think that's especially what made it so special was just kind of the stuff that you could set up outside of the game. You just have, especially when you kind of raise the morale of an area, and that means that more of your Red Faction come on side and they start shooting at the EDF more, the bad guys. It's kind of there's a lot more kind of organic moments that happen. It's a world that feels that feels like it's living, and there's just, as much as there are some great scripted moments, I'm not sure if there's the mission that they used in the demo where they first sort of introduced the walker, and you're just basically running around smashing everything up, and you just get on the back of a truck and you start shooting everyone with a turret. That's definitely memorable. That's some of the most fun that I've had. But it's just kind of the way that things fit together and happen outside. Like, just blow up a building, sooner or later you're going to be swarmed of enemies, and you're going to be swarmed of friendlies, and there's all these conflicts that happen just naturally. And I think that's something that quite a lot of games, it would be great that for quite a lot of games to replicate that, because it's something that we don't really see enough, especially with linear games kind of becoming more popular.
Sure. Any other thoughts about kind of why Red Faction Guerrilla still holds up in 2018?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of weird because, especially in terms of its impact, I don't think it had that much of an impact. It's still kind of, I think one of the main reasons why it is still relevant, at least, and why people should still play it, is just because of how different it really is. There's not many games like it. There's not many games that kind of combined a great open world with just the ability to just destroy it, bring it all down, and then as soon as it's built up again, go ahead and just keep destroying it again. I know there's games like Just Cause that kind of emphasize that a lot, but it's just the way that it feels, I guess, natural, and the natural world that you're in is something that it feels like an oddity in terms of the games that come out now. I don't think, especially with THQ not really existing anymore, though it was bought up by Nordic Games and now it's THQ Nordic. I don't really think that there's that many. It's not really a game that would be made today, at least. I don't think, and that's why it's special.
Yeah. I can agree with that. It's interesting. For a while there, we had a number of games. The first Just Cause, and especially, I mean, I don't know. People know what Just Cause is nowadays.
Yeah.
But I feel like much more the selling point of like Just Cause 1 and Just Cause 2 was like, hey, here's this world that you can just destroy, have at it. And we had Mercenaries 1 and 2, which Pandemic is gone now. And then we had a number of Red Faction games, which really Guerrilla's the only one that kind of did this. But yeah, it's, I don't know. I feel like more people should do, more destructive stuff, like not necessarily just systemic. I keep using that word, but just, being able to play with the environment. I mean, there was that game, what was it called? Fractured or whatever, where you could raise and lower the ground. It was a LucasArts game.
Yeah.
That was, you played as like generic badass dude.
Yeah.
And like that was not a good game, but like it was at least a cool idea.
Yeah. And
we don't have weird stuff with the with terrain deformation and building destruction and
exactly
stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about,
I don't know why.
Yeah, like if you think about the gimmicks, there aren't too many games of gimmicks anymore, which is kind of, Red Faction's better than just a gimmick game, but it's obviously the whole selling point was it's destruction, because if you think about it, you had, as well as Fracture, you had, I think there was Inversion, which was like that first person shooter where you could keep inverting gravity. There was that
wasn't that long ago. I think that was just a few years ago. But that was also like a bad game.
It was bad. Yeah, that's the difference, I guess, because Red Faction Guerrilla definitely isn't bad.
Yeah.
But it's,
that was already from 2012. Holy crap! I honestly thought that was like 2015 or 16. Oh man,
I think it was something about the kind of the Xbox 360 and PS3 era, where it was just kind of. People were willing to try out gimmicks a lot more. They had like was it Binary Domain, the one where you could voice control everybody, and that didn't work out too well. But it's kind of it's just kind of from that era of games that were willing to try something new, even if it meant the game was terrible.
Sure. All right. Well, one of the other things that we like to do on the not the DarkCast, on Dark Station, is in our top 5 list, we shine a spotlight on one of our favorite games that was released before 2018, but we only just got to play. So what is that game for you?
That game for me is Yakuza 0. Yeah, it's...
when did I am completely lost on the timeline of Yakuza. When did Yakuza 0 actually come out?
I think it came out... I'm pretty sure Yakuza 0 came out last year.
Okay.
I think. Or it could have been the year before. But yeah.
But it's not one of the PS3 titles that's been like recently remastered or anything.
No, it's I think it came out in Japan about 2 or 3 years before it came out in the West. And So yeah, it's the prequel to all the Yakuza games, and I've never played Yakuza before. But I just heard
Zero sounds like a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of. I always originally thought the Yakuza was just kind of wrongly. I thought that it was it's just Japanese, low budget GTA. It's not very good. It's just your classic open world game. I didn't realize the amount of kind of character it had in it, because one thing that Yakuza 0 does really well is that its main story is amazing. It's a serious main story. It's got some really great moments in it. There's characters that you actually care about that are interesting. There's moments that actually that shocked me at least. But at the same time, you've got all this side stuff where it's just completely insane. Like it feels like only a Japanese company could make. You have stuff like there's one side mission where I think you meet Michael Jackson and Steven Spielberg. They're not actually called that, but they're basically really, really obvious. There's like really obvious parodies of them, and I can't remember. You have to. I think they're like filming a music video for Michael Jackson, and you have to beat up zombies that are trying to chase him, and that kind of stuff. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane, and that's why I love it, because it kind of. I don't know how, but it just mixes all the serious story stuff with these, wacky, insane side missions, and it doesn't feel jarring at all. It just feels like charming, really.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah. So do you plan on playing more Yakuza games? Or
yeah,
Yakuza, or however you pronounce it?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But I'm playing Yakuza Kiwami right now, because that was free on PS Plus. So I think that's
nice.
The remastered version of the first game.
Okay.
And then after that, I'll probably plan on getting Kiwami 2, so the remastered second game as well, because it's definitely hooked me in. I need to catch up on what I've missed.
Excellent. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts about either Red Faction or Yakuza 0? Yeah,
I mean, I think the main thing is it just kind of proves that, especially with those two games being some of the favorites I've played this year, it's mainly just that I feel like the best games, or at least the games that are most enjoyable, are the ones that have tons of character, the ones that aren't afraid to go a bit off the deep end.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. Well, Sam, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about Red Faction, Guerrilla, and Yakuza 0, and I look forward to talking to you more in 2019.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the DarkCast. I'm Jonathan Miley. Joining me is Brandyn Brodsky. How are you doing, Brandyn?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great. I say this pretty much at the beginning of each of these little sections for the podcast, but I'm just having a blast getting to talk to a whole bunch of different people from the website. It's been a lot of fun recording these kind of small, sections to talk about some of the best games of the year, and also just getting to talk to people that I, haven't talked to in a while, and getting to meet some new faces, and it's been great. Actually, new voices, not really new faces, but new voices. But that's what we're doing. We're talking about some of our favorite games from 2018. What are we talking about today?
Looks like today we're talking about Dragon Quest XI. One of the higher picks in my list.
Why not Dragon Quest, 1 through 10? I mean, those have lower numbers, so clearly they're superior, right? That's how numbering works. And here I am just throwing the podcast off the rails. I'm like 2 minutes in. So I, as a person that does not play very many JRPGs, you could probably say any JRPGs, I don't know anything about Dragon Quest. What is this game besides questing for dragons?
Well, Dragon Quest is kind of more traditional style of JRPG. It doesn't really throw too many curveballs as far as the genre is concerned. But as you said, you haven't played very many of those. So I guess what really sets it apart from other games would just be kind of the turn-based battle system and the beautiful art and music and characters that kind of all come together and create this quest of epic proportions for dragons, basically.
There are dragons in this game, correct? I mean,
of course, there's always at least one dragon.
Okay. Are they people that do you fight the dragons, or the dragons on your side? What's up with the dragons?
Usually you fight the dragons.
Okay. So the dragons aren't good guys in this case.
I mean, they can be.
Okay. All right.
There's no rules saying they can't be.
Have there been very many good dragons, or are dragons mostly the villains in the Dragon Quest series?
I mean, I'd say that's up to you to find out. I don't want to say anything more than that.
Interesting.
Keep things mysterious, you know.
Yeah, building intrigue. I like it. Now, this being the 11th entry in the main Dragon Quest kind of saga, there's also tons of spin-offs. What does Dragon Quest 11 do that's either new or different or extra special or whatever the case may be that kind of puts it on your top 5 list for the year?
Interestingly, it's not necessarily what it does different. It's more so how it perfects everything it has done before. It's not necessarily new and different, though very many Dragon Quest games have been traditional in style, just kind of being a JRPG with interesting characters and world design, and of course art done by Akira Toriyama. It's kind of always followed the same formula for the most part. Dragon Quest XI is I want to say the second entry in the game that's been done in 3D. All of the other entries prior to this one, other than Dragon Quest VIII, have all been two-dimensional, not counting the Dragon Quest X, which we never got in the U.S.
Okay.
But I think what really sets it apart from all the other games that I've played this year is just how much love and effort was put into making this the perfect Dragon Quest game for fans of the series, and just a generally appealing visual and emotional experience for the player.
Nice. The art style obviously looks beautiful. You said that this is only the second Dragon Quest that has been 3D in the U.S. Is that right?
Yeah.
So 8 in this one?
Yes.
And then 10 is also 3D, but that never made it over.
Yeah, it's one of those MMO type deals.
Okay, gotcha.
So.
Gotcha. Does anything feel like it kind of... I know you said it's not doing anything widely different. It's just kind of polishing the stone that it has. But is there anything that feels different or special playing Dragon Quest in 3D versus playing the 2D version of it?
Yeah, I noticed there's a lot of attention to detail, actually. There's quite a lot of things that just... It's really fun to just explore all of the different areas and see if you can find any anomalies laying around the scenery. And then all of the characters seem to have all of these like the hidden dialogue pieces throughout the game. It's just fun to kind of explore and walk around, and it just feels very lively in contrast.
As far as dialogue and conversations go, is the game does it have English voice acting, or is it Japanese only?
It actually does have English voice acting, which is pretty nice. At first, I was very skeptical of it, but I've grown to really like it.
Okay.
There's a lot of English accents,
as there should be. I mean, anything else that's just kind of stand out with the game? You mentioned that the soundtrack is really good, but any? Yeah.
I think one thing I really liked about the game was that it had a really interesting kind of like upgrade and crafting system, whereas you could like find items through different monsters that you kill or just in the environment that you have to find at certain points in the time, certain times in the game, stuff like that, and you can kind of bring it all back to a camp and play a little mini game and craft your items, and depending on how well you do, it puts it on a tier where it's better or just normal. I thought that was a pretty interesting thing to add, just because it just kept me wanting to make everything. Maybe that's that kind of collector's mentality.
Sure.
Side quests are also very interesting, which is not always something you get in many games.
Mm-hmm.
I found a lot of the characters to have fairly interesting situations going on, humorous situations too. I can't neglect to mention the humor found in the Dragon Quest games.
Okay. Is that a thing by and large in the Dragon Quest world?
It very much is. It manages to be humorous and serious all in the same. It's not a mix that's very easy to explain, but it's definitely there, and I enjoy it every step of the way.
I think that's actually something that just a lot of RPGs, if it's good, it needs to find the right balance of, having very serious moments, but then having some, almost like absurdist moments. And those are generally found in the side quests and stuff, and creating a nice balance of, having these serious moments and having these odd, quirky, funny moments, and making them mesh so that they feel like they're part of the same world and you're not getting whiplash between the various tones of the game. But I think any good RPG that I've ever played has at least, played with that line and worked both in the realm of serious and funny or bizarre, or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts about Dragon Quest XI before we talk about your favorite game that you played in 2018 but was released previously?
I just think that Dragon Quest in general, not this game in particular, it's a series that's been very neglected over the years in the over here in the West, and it's kind of nice just to see that they're still putting all of this effort into the localization with the voice acting and the humorous dialogue, still, connecting it. I think it's something important to mention, just because we missed out on the last entry, and it took a very long time to get some of the other entries in the series, so it's just something that's important to me. It's been something I've been waiting for a long time, and I hope to keep coming.
All right, well, with that, like I said, one of the things that we like to talk about is some of our favorite games that we played released previously, but we only just got a chance to play in 2018. So what's your pick for that?
For that, I picked Dead by Daylight, which I believe came out maybe 2 years ago or so. So it's not terribly old, but it's not new.
And so what is that for people that don't know?
Dead by Daylight is a 4 versus 1 survival horror game. It's completely multiplayer, where one player plays as a killer and the others have to survive by activating generators and escaping through a gate.
What makes it earn that spot for you?
I just really enjoy kind of, I don't know what it is about multiplayer games and their additivity, so to speak, but it's fun to kind of like mess around with all of the different perk styles that you can choose, similar to like, I don't know, Call of Duty or that kind of stuff, where you have different perks and it modifies the way you play the game. With Dead by Daylight, it just feels very unique. It feels very different. The way in which you do things. I guess to put it in perspective, the killer actually plays in first person where the survivors play in third person. So they actually is a bit of a disadvantage to the killers since they can't kind of see the whole surroundings, where the survivors can.
It's, that reminds me a lot of the old Splinter Cell multiplayer, the Spies versus Mercenaries,
Yeah.
where when you're playing Mercenaries, you're basically playing a game of Rainbow Six, and you're first person, you have a gun, you're not very quick, but basically you have more life, you're more of a tank. And as a spy, you have third person. You can't actually kill the mercenaries unless you get up close, and you could break their neck. But with your gun, you can't do any type of, long-range killing or anything as a spy. But you can see your surrounding, you can mantle up onto objects, you can, get into the shadows and disappear and stuff like that. So it sounds like it's kind of similar to that, but not, more horror-themed, obviously.
Yeah. So interesting that you mentioned that. I should explain this because I completely forgot about this. Depending on your killer, it takes 2 hits to knock down the survivors. If you knock down a survivor, you have to put them on the hook, and then their other survivors will have to come and rescue him. If not, then things aren't looking so good for him. There's actually a whole bunch of different killers. I think they just released their 14th or 15th killer, so there's a bunch of different guys to choose from, and they all do something different. For example, the main killer of the game, who's kind of the mascot of the game, his name's the Trapper. He puts down traps that you can step in.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another killer called the Huntress. She can throw axes at you from a distance. So mixing that with all of the different perks you can choose, which can modify things like when you can, be killed. And there are different perks which basically make it so you can see other survivors within a certain distance when you hook someone, or when they complete a generator, something along those lines. So it's just interesting to see what you can do with all of these different perk combinations and different killer attributes, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Do the survivors also have perks, or is it just the killer that has perks?
The survivors also do have perks.
Okay.
There are plenty of different perks that make you run faster for a short period of time, perks that allow you to see the other survivors, like their aura, all that kind of stuff. Stuff that modifies the RNG even.
What's your favorite murderer to play as?
There is a killer called the Doctor. He is probably my favorite if the Huntress isn't. They're both pretty up there. He has like a big spiky medical thing, which he hits the survivors with, and he causes the survivors to scream out loud when they're within his heartbeat radius, which is just kind of like a radius around the killer, which notifies the survivors that he's close to. And when they scream, he can kind of see where they are and track them down. And then he can also shock them to create more madness and terror within their minds, effectively making them see things that aren't really there. He's a lot of fun.
Well, any final thoughts about the game before we move on to our next section?
Well, it's just a very enjoyable game. If you have friends, it's even more enjoyable because you can kill them too. And yeah, it's just a game. That's fun. Not much more to say about that.
That should be part of our rating scale. 5 out of 5. It's just a game. It's fun. That's all you need.
That's all you need.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for sitting down and talking with me about Dragon Quest XI and Dead by Daylight. Look forward to talking to you more in 2019.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to the DarkCast. I'm Jonathan Miley. Joining me is Alex Mateo. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great. I've already said that I say this at the beginning of each section.
We're back!
Yeah, well, there's that. But with the Game of the Year stuff, I've just been able to talk to a whole bunch of different people on the website, and it's been a blast. So between still being back and getting to talk to a whole bunch of different people, it's just been so much fun, but there's so much to edit. I've spent most of this day just getting episode 1 ready to go, and that will be out when people are listening to this, because this will be part of episode 2 or 3. I don't know. I don't plan that far ahead. But it's been a lot of work, but I'm having a great time doing this. So yeah, Games of the Year, woohoo! So we've got a very special game that just kind of flew. It didn't fly under the radar, and under the sense that nobody knew about it because everybody knew about it. But it got in just in the nick of time. Otherwise, we'd be having to talk about it next year. But we're talking. What are we talking about?
Super Smash Brothers Ultimate.
Okay, so I feel like we can sum up this conversation and with just one question and an answer. Is this the ultimate Super Smash Brothers?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's
right.
why it's on your list. We're done.
It's actually at the top of my list. Yeah.
In terms of numbers or physically on the page, because that would mean it's number 5, or is it number 1?
I look at lists upside down, so
Okay.
it's number 1 and also on the top of my upside down list.
Fantastic.
Yes.
That's good. So no surprises. You know, the number 1 slot's just right there. You don't have to scroll down. There's no suspense. It's just boom, number 1.
Yep, 1.
I like it. But so what makes? Well, I guess for anybody that has lived under a rock for 20 years, what is Super Smash Brothers, real quick?
Super Smash Brothers is a game that crossovers all the Nintendo franchises like Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Metroid, Kirby, etc., and has them all fight it out with each other in what I can only describe as a party fighting hybrid. Okay, so you're all on a stage, and in most fighting games, the point is to get their stamina or their HP down to 0. In Super Smash Brothers, all of the games since the N64 version, the point is to smash them off of the stage, or make them fall down through attacks, items, whatever. And everyone has their signature moves, like Mario's jumps and fireballs, and Yoshi can throw eggs and eat people and turn them into eggs, stuff like that.
Which is why Yoshi is the best character. Nobody else can poop people out into eggs, so
yeah,
he wins for me.
Yeah, Yoshi's the pooper.
So what is new and different in Smash Bros. Ultimate?
So Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, it brings everyone that's ever been in a Super Smash Bros. Game back. So over the years, especially with the Wii and Wii U version, characters have been taken out. For one reason or another, they just weren't renewed for the next roster. For example, Metal Gear Solid's Snake was in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, but he did not return for the Wii U version.
So that was actually going to be my first question, did Solid Snake return?
Yes, he is back. Everyone is back. Even characters that people didn't want back, like Pichu from Pokemon, are back. Because everyone is literally back. That's actually how they announced, well, not announced, but how they revealed it at E3. They were just showing all the characters, revealing that Snake is back, and woo! Could everyone, could other characters be back? And literally the words flash on the screen. Everyone is here. So every single character that has ever been in Smash is in Ultimate, and that's actually something that I wanted since since Super Smash Bros. Brawl took characters out. So I was thinking, it would be nice if the Switch version, had a lot of the characters return, because there was that, sense that maybe the Switch version will just be a port or a remake or just very small update. But no, what they did was they really just did bring everyone back like I wanted. They brought not all of the stages though, but a lot of the stages from the past Smash games have returned. And what else is really new from besides characters and stages is that there is a full adventure mode that I got really into. It's adventure is not new to the Smash Brothers franchise, but it's not always done well. I think the only other solo single player mode that I've liked was from Brawl for the Wii. It's the Subspace Emissary adventure mode where you have all of the characters kind of doing weird platforming. It kind of plays out like a Kirby Metroidvania, but with Smash Brothers mechanics.
Okay.
And I liked it for there were a lot of crossover cutscenes, like fan service for that, and it was interesting. But it wasn't necessarily the best put together, but I enjoyed it just as fan service. World of Light is closer to event mode, which if you've played Super Smash Bros. Melee or the Wii U version, event mode is where you have conditions-based battles. Like every battle has some kind of rule. Like, for example, you're fighting Dr. Mario, and he's giant, and there's wind on the stage, blah, 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 you know what I mean? There is some special rule that makes it a unique fight, and it's usually themed, for a scenario. Like, oh, Dr. Mario's giant because, I don't know, he ate too many pills, and it's really windy in his, in his hospital, whatever. So what World of Light does is it takes event mode and, multiplies it by 1,000. Instead of 50 events, there's over 600 something events. And each of them are themed around a character, okay? So a Nintendo or third-party character, because there are a lot of third parties now, we mentioned Snake, Sonic the Hedgehog from Sega's in there, Capcom's Ryu from Street Fighter, and Castlevania's Simon Belmont. So there are a lot of third parties in there. They're all of the spirits, which are the characters in event mode, are represented by a special themed fight. And it's really clever how they do it. It's almost like the characters that are playable in Smash Brothers are cosplaying and pretending to be the other Nintendo characters. So if I could just give some examples, here's an easy one. We have Rabid Mario from Mario plus Rabbids. Rabid Mario is represented by a Mario that is wearing American clothes, just the American flag, even though, Rabbids it's a European franchise anyway. Mario is just wearing an American flag and has a bunny hood and is also has a warp gun or has a ray gun. So he's just sort of blasting people as if he were Rabid Mario. Then we have, Dr. Wily from Mega Man. He's just Dr. Mario surrounded by Rob the Robots, pretending to be robot masters. Everything is a reference, and they don't really spell it out for you. Some of them are obvious, but there are a lot of obscure characters and series represented. They didn't stop at Mario, Zelda, Mega Man, etc. They really went to deep cuts, Baten Kaitos, Cold Sept, the mysterious Murasame Castle, and those are just the less obscure, on the scale of obscurity. Like, there are stuff that I really know nothing about, like, I can't even name them because I'm not sure what I was looking at when I fought them. But I appreciate the references, and it's a mode that should be repetitive, and it kind of is. But I was just really hooked as a big Nintendo fan to just see all of these series represented in this fun, clever way. Like, it's funny. Like, if you've played Earthbound, Ness's father, the main character Ness, his father is like not present in the game, and he only talks to him via the phone. So his spirit in the game is represented by just a phone, like a picture of a telephone. And in game, once you fight the spirit of Ness's dad, what you're really fighting is Ness and an invisible Solid Snake who represents his invisible absent father. So it's everything's just tongue in cheek. Like Sakurai, the creator of Smash Brothers, just loves peppering all of these Nintendo references in jokes and stuff that Nintendo fans would care for. And what I like about Smash Brothers most, even more than just the fighting, the gameplay, which I think is really fun because it's more of a party version of fighting. What I like about it most is that it's a celebration of Nintendo. It's a crossover of everything I like about this company. Like, it's Mario fighting Pikachu, it's Donkey Kong fighting Samus. It's crazy, and I love that everything. It really feels like everything is in there for this one.
It sounds like it. It's kind of like information overload right now. There's so much stuff. I don't even know what to ask you about with this game.
I will say that they added a few characters that were some of the biggest fan requested characters, like King K. Rool from Donkey Kong Country, Ridley, the Nemesis from Metroid, and the new Inklings from Splatoon. Oh, as well as Simon Belmont from Castlevania. There aren't as many new characters in this one, but I feel like they are some of the ones that fans truly, pined for as playable fighters. So that's like another plus. Like, there's just a lot of pluses. Like, there's so much to do in the game. I haven't even mentioned classic mode, which is also kind of like what, World of Light means to me. It's every character. You know how in most fighting games, every character kind of has like a quote-unquote story where they fight 6 characters and then there's like an end cutscene, blah blah blah. For the first time in a Smash Brothers game, every character has a themed route that they follow, so they always fight the same characters, and it has something to do with their theme, their character. So for example, in Ryu's classic mode route, he's from Street Fighter, right? Every character he faces is an impersonation, if you will, of a Street Fighter character. So he'll fight, instead of Blanca, the green electric dude from Street Fighter, he'll fight a green Donkey Kong in the jungle. Like, it's full of like little jokes like that, just like in World of Light. But what makes that fight cool as well is that it actually becomes a stamina fight, as if you were playing Street Fighter. So it literally is like you're playing as Ryu going through Street Fighter. For Mega Man, it's like you're fighting robot masters. Like, Iceman is represented by the Ice Climbers. It's all just like clever, tongue-in-cheek, fun jokes for every character. And, I love this stuff. I love all the references and nods to video game history. And the gameplay is fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think you covered everything that I could possibly ask about this game. That sounds really cool. And I'm glad that they kind of brought all that stuff back into it. And it is kind of crazy how much they've put into this game, because I feel like with literally any other developer, and I don't know if this is Nintendo's mentality or if part of it is just that their online infrastructure is not, kind of there yet. But literally any other developer, they would have like a more reasonable number of characters, and then all of these add-ons would be part of like some sort of season pass instead of just all being in the game up front, which is awesome and crazy, and hopefully people pay attention to that. Well, so one of the things that we like to do with Dark Station and our top fives is shine a spotlight on our favorite game that we played in 2018 but was released sometime in the past. So what was that game for you?
For me, and this was actually hard for me because most of the games I played were either from 2018 or I didn't consider good enough to be put on the the top of this list. So I ended up putting in Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which, funny enough, is another Nintendo crossover only between Mario and Ubisoft's Rabbids. Mm-hmm. So what I really liked about it was that, well, one, I don't actually like the Rabbids, so for me to like this game should say a lot. But it's a strategy game. It's a Mario strategy game where Mario, it's like the game crossover that shouldn't exist, but it does. Like, Mario is teaming up with the Rabbids, who are these cartoonish minions type, characters, and he's participating in some XCOM-like strategy gameplay while using guns. Like, we're talking not like, first-person shooter guns, but like blasters, right? But just the fact that Mario is like using guns in a strategy game with non-Japanese Rabbids is crazy to me. But it ended up being really fun. And I just like how funny it is. It's kind of like a strategy light, but there's a lot going on when you jump on other characters and you have to equip different guns for the situation. I think what also made it good for me was that they also had the Donkey Kong Adventure DLC this year, which was also really fun. It brought Donkey Kong, and I like the character a lot, and it allowed him to have his own adventure. Like, it didn't just feel like, just a little bit of extra content. It was a full campaign that felt, maybe just as long as one or two chapters of the original. And the original is also already like fairly meaty. So I appreciate that there's a lot of effort going into the DLC for this game as well. Yeah, it's fun, and I don't know. I seem to like gaming crossovers.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Any final thoughts about either Super Smash Bros. Ultimate or what is the name of the Mario Rabbids crossover?
Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Of course, that's the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course that's the name. Ultimate. Ultimate.
Generations, Origins, Legends.
Generations, Ultimate, Origins, Final Chapter, Prologue. Well, that's just Kingdom Hearts naming conventions now.
I was going to say, that's a Kingdom Hearts game.
Like, literally.
So, any final thoughts about, I've already forgotten the name of the Mario and Rabbids game or Super Smash Bros. Ultimate?
I'll say that I thought that with Smash, I was a little worried coming into Nintendo's second year because, or the Switch's second year, because they had such a great year with Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, and they had some good fun games this year. A lot of ports or definitive editions, if you will, and an interesting experience or interesting experiments like Nintendo Labo. But I really think with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, they finally have their big hit of the year, and it couldn't have come at a better time. I'm happy to get to enjoy it now. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks, Alex, for chatting with me about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and that Ubisoft Mario game that I'm not even going to try to name again.
I think it was called Assassin's Creed Mushroom Kingdom. Make it. Someone make it.
Oh, you broke me. I can't. I don't even know how to finish this now.
This podcast will just go on forever until he stops laughing.
Oh, I'm dying. All right, well, thanks again for sitting down and chatting with me.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, I look forward to talking to you more in 2019.
Here, Happy New Year.
That does it for part 2 of our Games of the Year discussion. Thank you so much for listening. You can find more info about the games we discussed in the show notes for this episode, which you can find on darkstation.com, as well as our writers' top 5 lists for Games of the Year. Be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at darkstation_com, find us on Facebook, and email us at podcast@darkstation.com. For Brandyn Boyd, Sam Brooke, Brandon Brodsky, and Alex Mateo, I'm Jonathan Miley. Thanks, and until next time, have a good one.